my number one is La La Land from 2016, starring Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling, directed by Damien Chazelle. Quick log line: while navigating their careers in Los Angeles, a pianist and an actress fall in love while attempting to reconcile their aspirations for the future. So I'll say this at the top of my head, the top of my description of this is that there are many flaws in this movie, and I've sort of had like a interesting hot and cold relationship with this movie over time. But I still ended up putting this movie at my number one because of two reasons. One, I think to me, LA, despite everything that we've talked about, the hustle, the loneliness, all of it, and you said this as well, it is a city of dreams. And I think this movie just captures that very beautifully. And dreams, sometimes the broken ones and the fulfilled ones, regardless, it's a city of dreams. And I haven't seen that many movies that really show LA and its topography and its natural beauty in this kind of heightened way. And it's actually not that heightened because LA is very beautiful. I don't think most people know that or even think of that. But when you drive around, if you can just look above the strip malls and see the trees and the hills and what have you, it's actually really, really beautiful. And I think this movie does a great job of highlighting the everyday walkways, but also, Griffith Observatory and the monumental places of LA as well. So that's why I put this movie on the list, really. But yeah, going back to the whole dream thing, I think this is really Emma Stone's movie and her character and her trials and tribulations. But also, like we were talking about Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood, I think, yes, there's, commercialism and what's hot and what's current, but sometimes people who are purists and care about, what they're here in LA to do, which is pursue their passions, they do come together. And I think what this movie shows is that can be good, but it doesn't always end well either, because ultimately the dream that you're chasing or seeking wins. And in some ways, yeah, you'll meet people who will see you for that dream and support you and help you in that journey, but that's short-lived, because ultimately you have to go for your dream yourself, and you need a different kind of partner or person to support you in that dream who probably doesn't have a similar dream like you, and we've seen so many movies in a stereotypical way, Star is Born, what have you, where between a couple, one person's dreams overshadow the other. I don't think this is that. I think they both end up doing just fine, but I love that there's sort of two ships crossing in the night and they're there together for a certain moment of time. They both gain something from each other and then they move on and do their own thing and they have different lives. And there's something, I don't know, poetic about that. On the flip side, though, I think what doesn't work about this movie to me is the romance. It's obviously trying to steal and build on classic musicals like Singing in the Rain and such. And maybe it's unfair to even compare this with that, but to me, the whole Griffith Observatory sort of dream sequences and such, I always found them very boring. And I don't know, not that I know Damien Chazelle, I'm sure he's a lovely, lovely person, obviously very talented, but when I watch his interviews and think about him, I get angst and nervousness and drive and all of that, but not love and romance, which is why I think to me, Whiplash feels like a summation of this person. And this movie, when it's kind of touching on those feelings of kind of angst and striving hard, it sort of is a 10 on 10. But the love story between the two, and maybe Ryan Gosling in some ways channeling Damien Chazelle of being sort of this alien-like person, which I feel like what Ryan Gosling has become now in all of his movies, which maybe that I don't know. Clearly, I'm not joining that party because people obviously love him, and I like him too. But I think there's something in his performance, something in the love between them that doesn't quite work. But then maybe that's the point. Maybe it was never supposed to be that lovey-dovey. Although I don't think the movie makers want you to feel that. They want you to be swept off your feet, literally, the way the two characters are in that scene, and I don't. And that to me is the flaw of the movie. But other than that, great score, beautifully shot. I think he deserved Best Director. I mean, we talk a lot about, you know, the future of film, and sometimes easy to overlook. Oh, where are the great movie makers? And I think we have some great ones, and Chazelle is definitely in it. I can't wait for Babylon this year. It's going to be amazing, I'm sure. So, but yeah, for the dreams itself, I think this movie is number one for me.
Yeah, interesting points you raise about Damien. I mean, he's not an LA native, from New York, East Coast guy. And I definitely, now that you're saying all these things, I can, in looking back at the movie, it does seem like it's like a New Yorker kind of writing about LA technical in a way. Yeah, right. Which is, but interesting. So this is a film I had not seen before the podcast. It came out, it was one of those movies, I think I've talked about this before, where it didn't really look like appealing to me. So it was on a list. I was trying to see it because it was nominated for the Oscars. And when it didn't win Best Picture, it fell off my list of things I wanted to see. But at some point I knew I wanted to return to it. This was also around a time when I had left LA to move to Seattle. And I was like, I don't know if I want to watch a movie that's supposed to be like, you know, a movie that makes you miss LA when I'm not there. I'm like, I'm probably not emotionally ready to watch this. I'll kind of, again, use that as a reason not to see it. So I had never actually seen it before. And yeah, I have to say that there were a lot of things that, well, first of all, just about LA, we'll start there. I think it does do a great job of capturing, you know, it's got the good parts and the bad parts. It does the traffic thing, the crazy parking rules. You always worry about your car getting towed, but it
Prius,
also,
everybody
at Prius, everyone's in the Prius. Exactly. Right. So that definitely feels, you know, very realistic. But it's, you know, there's also, it shows the, you know, the Griffith Observatory, and it looks really great, and like home in the Hollywood Hills. And it definitely romanticizes the film, but in a way that is, I mean, they clearly shot it on location. So it's like, it's the real LA, but the real LA is looking really nice.
It's a dream. That's what the movie is.
Yeah, but I was somehow thinking that they would take a decision to maybe make the movie look, or the city look, unrealistically beautiful. But instead, to your point, it looks realistic, beautiful at the same time. And I thought that was just really blew me away on that. You know, it touches on, you know, the different types of, you know, the artists that are trying to make it right in the two main characters, but also all the LA, you know, annoying movie people, fake people at like the parties. And that is definitely something in LA, like the sellouts, right? Or whatever you want to call them, right? You go to these parties and you're meeting all these different types of people. And I think this movie is definitely like a checklist of LA stereotypes that does a great job of capturing that. And I also, you know, similar to a theme, I think at Ed Wood, there's a line in this movie, I can't remember who says it, but like, oh, people in LA, like, worship everything but value nothing.
Yeah, Ryan says
like
that.
I was like, that is true, you know, in the same way in Ed Wood, where it's like you care about the now, so you're, you know, you're worshiping the success, but you don't really care about the film history and what Bella did. So I think that, you know, is definitely very true. I'm like, wow, that actually is a lot of what LA is like. You know, transplants again, right? These are both the main characters of transplants, and I think that is a very key thing to LA. So yeah, I think in terms of LA movies, just a great job of capturing a realistic romance of the city. It's not like Steve Martin's LA story that is very heightened and like a fantasy world, even though it's, again, touching on real things, or is grounded as, or is, you know, realistic as like Collateral, which looks like, you know, could be happening right now. I think this does a great job of striking the balance, and the way he's able to bring out, like in certain scenes, especially this sort of like 3-strip Technicolor look. You know, I know he's trying to pay tribute to these, you know, 40s, 50s musicals. And I think visually just fantastic. Like production design's great. I think he does some incredible stuff too with the camera and cinematography. So yeah, I think a good LA movie in that respect. In terms of the things that didn't work for me, like, it's a musical, and, you know, I judge musicals by, are the songs any good? And I think the songs are across the board not good. Like, I didn't think the music was any good. That's fair. Yeah. But for me, none of the songs worked.
I like the songs a lot, actually.
And man, the dancing was like embarrassing. Like, it was actually kind of hard. That sequence you mentioned, where they go to the Griffith Observatory, and there's this sort of a Fred Astaire dream-like dance sequence. Gosh. Yeah. Oh man, like, can Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, they cannot dance at all, and it was so hard to watch. And I was like, oh no, this is like I'm embarrassed for you. Like, please stop. So that was tough.
I would watch her for sure, but him, that's the thing. Like, the steps don't have to match even. The steps don't even have to be great. But if you put a smile on your face and you show that you actually love what you're doing, you can sell it, you know. And the fact that he has chosen to be this sort of sad, brutish sort of person, it just, then all you can do is watch his footwork.
Yeah. And man, that was all the dancing was embarrassing. And the singing was not great, but at least it's like, okay, fine. They're actors, they're singing. That's okay. But the dancing for some reason, like kind of put me off. But I will say that the movie overall, like as I was watching, I was like, yeah, this is fine. Like it's not really landing for me until like literally like the last 5 minutes. And there's a scene at the end, which you kind of hint at, where essentially these two, they meet in LA, they form a romance. They both have careers that take them in different directions. So then they break up. And then at the end, they run into each other again. And there's a fantastic fantasy sequence of like what their life could have been like.
Brilliant.
Right? Like if they had been able to, it's like the classic Hollywood ending of the romance works and your career. You get both, right? And it's this, what their beautiful life would have been like. And essentially the choice that they had to make was career over love, and they chose career. And both of them did. And both of them had the success in the ways that they wanted, but they had to sacrifice their relationship with each other. And I think that is something in LA too, that, it's not a city that you think of a lot when it's like represents romance. It's Paris, definitely, the city of love. And like, definitely there's a romanticism in New York, and a lot of good romances can happen there because there is that sense. I can't really describe it so much in New York, but there is that sense of there's that love story that you can have there. LA, I don't know. It doesn't really come across so much as like a city that represents,
because
like
you're driving always.
Yeah, it's like it's not that love. And I think what this movie does a really good job of showing is that, like you have to make sacrifices if you want success, and you come to LA because you want that success, and your career is what's important, not in a sense of like climbing a ladder or any kind of like New York got to make it rich. It's like, no, I want to put great art out in the world to be a successful artist. And they make decisions where the art is more important than their love. And they kind of compromise on their love because they don't want to compromise on their art. And I thought that was really touching, very, very moving. And I thought something that I've not seen reflected in films very often, to your point earlier too. And even the movie kind of comments on that. It's like, oh, if this movie was made in the 50s, we would have been falling in love. We've both been successful. And we're happily married with kids, and we both have careers. You know what? That's not how the world works. And I thought that to me, like literally the last 5 minutes of this movie saved it for me in terms of being a meh film, into like, this movie was great. And I'd watch it again, even though I'd skip past all the dancing. So I'm glad that you had this on your list. I think it's a great summation of a lot of the themes we talked about on this podcast already in terms of LA. And it is a movie that, captures so much of the city in such a great way that I'm glad I finally did, decide to come to it and then get to the end too, because my opinion would have been very different if you had caught me like an hour into the movie.
I'm glad you finished it, and I'm glad. I think this movie kind of, with the whole Oscar thing and what have you.
Oh, right. That's true.
Got, that's what it was known for. But I think over time, hopefully it'll find its audience back. The movie made $170 million.
It's a huge hit.
Huge hit.
Yeah.
And again, we keep ignoring the fact that, popular movies that are well made make money. They do. They make them.
And a musical too.
And a musical.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Crazy that it made so much
amazing.
money.
And this was just like a few years ago. So,
yeah.
On the love part, there is that sort of trade-off between career versus love. But I actually think that, like what I was saying earlier, I don't think this was an everlasting love to begin with. I think this love was very much of that time and moment where they both needed help and support to kind of really go for it.
Right.
Because like you were saying earlier, in case of Jamie Foxx's character, I don't know if the two of them were really acting. I mean, they were doing something, they're going to auditions and such, but they weren't really acting on what they, should be pursuing. And cut to, she's writing her own one-woman play.
Right.
And she's doing it. So I don't think this was a timeless love, really. But I agree. There's a trade-off that has to be made for sure.
Yeah, you make an interesting point on that too, that I think the movie does a great job of capturing, which again is sort of different. I feel that success in LA, right? It's, yes, obviously, like you as an individual, you're the, actress that makes it, or you're the writer, but it's not just you. Like you cannot make it on your own. You literally can't. Unlike in other industries or other cities, the story of, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, succeed on your own. You need that support system. And I think what this movie does a great job, kind of to your point of, Ryan pushes Emma, who also pushes Ryan in their career pursuits. Yeah. And if they hadn't met each other, they probably both would have moved back to their, wherever they were from.
Yeah,
and that was it.
Leaves.
They need it. So this movie does a great job of sort of showing that it takes, yes, it's your talent, but it can't just be your talent alone. It does take a village, much like in Ed Wood again, like that entire cast of characters comes together to create something. And all the movies you touched on with friendship, and even like your mention of Collateral with Tom Cruise and, inspiring Jamie Foxx. Like, I think success in LA, you need people around you to do that. And I think that this movie does a good job of showing that too, kind of what you touched on there. I hadn't really realized that before, but another reason why I think the movie is good for LA. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.